Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
I'm Ruth Walter, former County Legislator from District 15.
And today we have a really interesting program. The most number of complaints I get about anything relates to noise. And I think this is probably a county-wide problem. When you were a county legislator, did people complain about noise?
Yes, and I was the chair of the Environment and Health Committee, and one of our meetings was regarding noise because it's the number one complaint in the city of Yonkers, which is where I represented, as well as the village of Bronxville. And we had a Commissioner Mueller come on, as well as a noise expert, to talk about the detrimental aspects of noise on human health. Heart rate, a lot of stress, cortisol, tinnitus or tinnitus. I keep saying tinnitus. So there's a lot of ill effects of bad noise, and so Commissioner Mueller was really interested in talking about ways to change our streets and how do we make it so that we don't have a lot of disruption. This was in COVID, so everybody was home. And I don't know if people remember, if you remember, Paul, there was a lot of complaints regarding people who were trying to work from home, people who were trying to go to school from home. And we had this noise expert who came in and said they actually did a study in New York City where they had one side of a school face a very loud subway and the other not, and the scores were different. And then once they put in soundproofing, the scores equalized. So it isn't just annoying, it's actually harmful to human health and productivity.
One of the problems is a lot of communities like Greenburgh, we have noise ordinances, but it's impossible to have a police officer in front of every home or business that is making noise. People feel that, we pass these laws, these ordinances, and they're just not enforced.
Right.
So is there anything that could be done?
So when I was a legislator, we came up with this really great innovation, which is called a noise camera. And I put $175,000 into our capital budget to do a study. Unfortunately, it was voted out and I had to let that project go. But it's still there and can be brought forth. And I think the great thing about a noise camera is it can be there when an officer can't. They work like speed cameras or red light cameras. They triangulate sound. So they have cameras that are noise monitors that are extremely sensitive to noise. And so when a motorist comes that has modified illegally their muffler, if it rolls off the production line that way, it's a loud muffler like a Lamborghini, that is not a violation of New York state law. But when you go to a chop shop and you make a modification, we've all heard them go pop, pop, pop down the street, that is a violation of our law. And so the question is, to your point, how do we enforce that law? It's extremely hard to do as a police officer, with a decibel reader, just as somebody goes by.
On Central Avenue, there's a lot of drag racing.
Yes.
Would the noise cameras work on that?
It depends on how high you set your ordinance. And so one of the greatest things about in the time I've been out of office that New York City has put these into place. So New York City has, under their Department of Environmental Conservation, they have a noise ordinance that includes, it's illegal to modify your muffler to go above 85 decibels. The decibel levels are exponential, so almost like an earthquake. So 85 is extremely high, and 80 is, it's not just 5 decibels lower. It's a factor that is much bigger. So 85 decibels is really, really loud. So you can set it at 85, and then if they're drag racing and they exceed that 85 decibel, the camera, just like a red light camera, will take a picture and will identify which car is actually making that sound, and then we'll issue a ticket. And that is in place in New York City.
Do you know if New York, I think other communities, Miami also has it?
Correct.
Yes. Do you know if tickets have been issued based on the noise?
Yes, I believe in New York City, not only have they had a pilot program, they're now rolling out even more. And what I've said, I've talked to the Westchester Municipal Officers Association, and the noise generating population, the boy racers, the I would say they're antisocial because they are not interested in other people's experience. They want to go fast and go loud and wake people up. If once they get them put into place in New York City and the Bronx, we'll have even more people coming and racing on our highways. I had 7 highways in my former district. So, the Sprain Brook, the Bronx River, New York Thruway, the Sawmill, and Warburton is also extremely loud. So we want to make sure that Westchester doesn't get even louder as these noise cameras are put into place in New York City.
If a community like Greenburgh would put noise cameras up, could we move them around? So,
Absolutely.
Or does it have to be affixed to a pole?
It will depend on the home rule. We can talk about, wanting to get permission from New York State to put them into place. And I think you absolutely can move them. And I think they have moved them around in the city because you don't necessarily want people to get used to where they can't do their pop, 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 right? You want to make sure that it is something that is not okay anywhere in your community, in your city. And so they are movable, definitely.
Do you know if there's been any lawsuits relating to noise cameras?
Yes.
And what the results were?
And I hope that Ruben Peckham, who is from Intelligent Instruments, it's a company in the UK that supplies these cameras to New York City. I hope he'll be able to come on this show as well to talk about lawsuits as well as the fact that they have stood up in court. So we don't want to have, we want to prevent the program, the behavior. It's not about getting money for any particular municipality. We want people to not race with these incredibly loud modified mufflers and disturb the peace. It does impact people's health, and it's obviously incredibly unsafe if they're speeding and they have these modified noise mufflers. So we don't. It's not a money grab. It is an actual. We want this behavior to stop. So yes, moving the cameras around, putting them in different places. I think of Lower Westchester. We could have like a ring of these cameras, and it would keep people from traveling up from the city, traveling down, and racing on our highways.
What about leaf blowers? Would the noise cameras, could they be used for violators of leaf blowing laws?
That's a great idea. I don't know. I've only seen them in operation for cars. I know that they have an ability to track, as it's going past. So I think you'd have to have it positioned right outside where the actual, I don't know that it could be mounted to a police car, for example.
Right.
But it's a good question.
And New York State, a lot of the roads where there's a lot of speeding and noise are New York State roads, like Central Avenue. I just mentioned that because that's in 3 different jurisdictions. Would New York State have to give? I guess New York State would have to give us permission to put the camera. And how much territory could the cameras cover? Just a small little area, like right in front of the cameras, or? I
think it does. It's pretty local to the place where you've put the camera. But
let's say I put it in front of. The Crossroads Shopping Center, the Midway Shopping Center. Mm-hmm. How much, how far could a noise camera actually?
Yeah,
check?
I think it has to be right next to the car as it's driving past. But Ruben's a good person to ask that question.
Right.
As far as what's the actual distance that it's accurate to, and they've been very successful at stopping. I think they have it in England. They're doing it in New York City, and the fines are very high in New York. It's $800 for the first time, $2,400 for the second, like $3,000 for the third. You want to stop the behavior. You don't. It's not that you're looking for that money, but if you put it at $35, I think a lot of people who have spent many thousands to illegally modify their mufflers are going to say, $35, I'm not going to change. But if you put it really high, I think people will start to say, you know what, I'm going to find my fun and do something different.
And this is such an important quality of life, concern, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, we get so many complaints about noise.
Yeah.
And, the other question is relating to the state legislature. This would require state legislation. Like everyone I speak to likes the noise camera idea, but so far nothing's happened.
Yeah.
So what steps would you recommend be taken?
Well, I think that New York City did a great job by going to the Department of Environmental Conservation. So it isn't a statewide problem. It's not even necessarily a Westchester-wide problem, but it is here in Lower Westchester. We have a lot of highways that people race on and make these incredibly loud modified mufflers. So what we're trying to do is say, maybe instead of going to the vehicle and traffic law, I was the court clerk in the Village of Bronxville, so I know a lot about V&T law. Vehicle and traffic law needs to be statewide, so we want to make sure that this is just the communities that are affected. So perhaps if Greenburgh passed an ordinance, you need a home rule exemption from the state, and then in 5 years it doesn't really happen anymore, you're not taking on the entire law regarding cars.
Do you think the county, I know the county, a lot of legislators were supportive.
Absolutely.
And people in the county government. Do you think the county would be pushing for home rule authority for the whole county?
I think the county would be on county roads. So it'd be
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Bronx River Parkway, and they wouldn't come into Greenburgh roads, right, and say we're going to put up a camera.
But I'm sort of wondering from a strategy point of view, if we should try getting, Westchester County and all the municipalities in Westchester to say, this is something that we would like, and then ask our Albany representatives to allow it on any municipal road in Westchester and also on the county roads, because I sort of feel that this way, communities that elected officials who might be ambivalent or may think, oh, this is really novel, they might want to join the bandwagon.
Interesting. I think that's a great ask, and I know that Albany's in session right now, and hopefully we can get Assemblywoman Amy Paulin to work on this. She's now the Health Committee Chair, and it really does impact. I mean, people are very upset about this kind of noise waking them up at night, startling them as they walk, trying to walk down a peaceful road. So I do think it's a really good issue for legislators, and again, in hopes that in 5 years this is not a problem anymore. You want to stop the behavior. You don't want to have it be a money-generating issue where you have people that want to do things that are disruptive to the general peace, and you get your tickets. It really is about trying to stop this behavior.
One of the thoughts I had was maybe to start an online petition and then to share it with municipal officials and people in the community, and then get like a lot of signatures, because I think that this is the type of issue that once people talk about it, they'll support, and then the elected officials who might be a little ambivalent or reluctant will follow the lead of the community, because people definitely have concerns about this.
We had, last summer, we brought the technical company that has installed them in New York City, Reuben Peckham. We met with you and some of the council people here. We met with Westchester, the village of Tuckahoe, the village of Hastings, and the village of Portchester. And everybody thinks it's a great idea. Everybody in New York City, each council person has said they want them. I think price is an issue, and so hopefully we can
How much are they?
I think it's about $30,000
for each camera.
And then you have to install it, and then there's like a recalibration every year. So I think there's a contract, and it's not the cheapest thing in the world. However, I think it's extremely important, again, for health and for productivity and for quality of life.
It would be interesting to find out how much New York City has gotten back in tickets. It might be 30,000, but it might have paid for itself.
That would be wonderful. Again, I think wanting to change behavior is really, it would be my goal. But I think it can easily, those tickets are high, and they're meant to be high so that people will not find this to be an enjoyable activity for them. Meanwhile, they're disrupting their neighbors.
Why do you think this hasn't happened in Westchester, even though everybody likes it?
That's a good question. I think it's technically difficult to modify the law, home rule, and I also think that it's new, and I think new technology makes people a little bit uncomfortable if they're not like buying it off the shelf at Best Buy. This has to do with our cars, and it has to do with our roadways, and we want to make sure that it is viable. However, the fact that it's in New York City, I think, is proof of concept, and I think that people should be comfortable in that if New York City has implemented this technology, it is safe, it is stands up in court, and it is going to reduce behaviors, then I think we can take comfort here in Westchester that we can do it here.
And we have video that we're going to show that will give our viewers an opportunity to learn a little bit more about how noise cameras work and why they're such a possible answer to quality of life concerns that people have.
Yeah, and I think as a former elected, I've noticed that it is always a little bit difficult to innovate. In government, I think it's easier in private business to do new things and not, worry if it doesn't work out great. I think this is something that will work out really well, and people will be really happy if they can sleep through the night without this kind of disruption. And I think innovation is something that government can think about getting better at.
Right, and I am going to be doing my best to educate people about this. I really like the idea because it's sometimes frustrating when you're an elected official and people keep complaining about the same thing every single year, and you're really getting nothing accomplished. And I sort of feel this is at least a possible answer. And if people feel that there's noise cameras and they don't know where it's going to be,
right,
they may be more careful because they think there's a possibility that they could get tickets. So you convinced me that this is something that I should be working on, and
Good.
I'm looking forward to working with you on this. You used to
Great.
live in Dobbs Ferry?
I grew up in Dobbs Ferry. Yep, I live in Bronxville now, and it's definitely a complaint that I hear from a lot of people. It's even now it continues to bother people. These noisy mufflers. So
that is great. So thanks a lot. We're going to look at the video, and you'll see how this works. And I'm looking forward to hopefully helping organize an effort to persuade the state legislature and the governor to authorize this in Westchester. It doesn't make sense to me for the state to allow New York City to do it, but not to allow other communities like Westchester or Greenburgh to do it.
Sure. Yeah.
Great.
And people should write in. Once Paul has the petition up, people should sign that petition online.
And I'll send it to you.
Okay, good. I'll send it around.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to talk a little bit about noise cameras. Keeping New York safe also means protecting our quality of life. And managing noise pollution is a core part of DEP's mission. We get 45,000 311 complaints a year. It's the most of any category that we get. And many of those issues are the result of illegally modified mufflers. So starting in June 2021, we started a noise camera program. It's a cost-effective way of us and a very innovative way of us trying to mitigate that noise. So how does it work? We pair a camera with sound meters, and they're able to pick up any noise that's detected above 85 decibels, 50 feet away from the camera. And then they are able to zoom in and get the license plate of the camera, of the vehicle rather, and then we're able to issue a summons. We go through the video, and actually we have an example here to show you what it looks like, if we want to cue that up. The red dot you'll see in the video is actually following the car making the noise. So that registered above 85 decibels. Just for some context, 85 decibels is about as loud as a lawnmower, which is pretty loud if you're trying to sleep. We set up a fine schedule, and the fine is, and it's quite steep. It's $800 for the first offense, $1,700 for the second offense, and $2,500 for every offense after that. So there is a real motivating factor to not get a summons in this particular case. I think of them like speed cameras, but for noise. And so far, we've had one camera that we've been piloting all around the city. It's been tremendously effective in the number of potential complaints that we've seen. I think that's most of it.
So when is the plan? What's the plan to have the second camera and the third camera out? Do we have a projection of when we can expect to see more cameras that's out there?
Yeah, we sure do. These have been tremendously popular. Many council members have been asking for them in their districts. We plan to have an additional 7 cameras by the end of the year.
And, it's interesting, when I first took over in this job, I went around and I meet with a lot of elected officials, and one of the council members in Manhattan actually brought this up to me and said that it was his office who was the one who had pushed this legislation. So this is, once again, if the information is correct, it was actually spawned by a city council member. But just really important to the public out there, the objective here is not to write summonses, it's to correct behavior, right? So it's just a tool of writing summonses. They are steep, and it should, I mean, I would imagine that most people would want to avoid those summonses. But part of it is education and getting the word out there, because it is very, it's not good for the environment to have the cars who are riding by with some of these noise. So good work, Commissioner.
Now, if you live near a busy road, you might be familiar with this sound. It's not only annoying, it can also impact your health.
Yeah, but brand new technology is now putting the brakes on noisy cars, as Lindsay Russell found out.
If you live in a bustling town or city, your ears might be regularly exposed to loud noise.
But there's one sound that's really grinding the gears of people up and down the UK. Noisy cars and motorbikes. And as someone who lives on a really busy road, I know a thing or two about the stress and anxiety that can cause.
The police can find drivers who cause a nuisance with too much noise, but it's not easy to gather evidence. So the big question is, how do you stop it?
Well, you've seen speed cameras. This is the new kid on the block, a noise camera.
The first 5 cameras to be installed in the UK are in London's Kensington and Chelsea, where they've had problems for years with owners of high-performance cars showing off their noisy engines.
We've seen people bringing cars into the area that have very loud exhausts, revving the vehicle, driving in a very noisy manner.
So how do these actually work?
So you've got a microphone and a couple of cameras. When the microphone detects a breach, it records the video, and then an officer will review it to make sure that there is an offence that they can issue a ticket for. We've had over 116 decibels recorded by one of these cameras. That's the equivalent of a chainsaw or a helicopter being right next to your ear, well above what they're legally allowed to make. Of our sort of 400 tickets that have been issued, we've only had very few that are repeat offenders. So clearly the message has sort of got through that if you're going to make this noise, this isn't the place to do it.
With the success in London, the government is pledging to invest £300,000 towards more of these cameras for England and Wales's noisiest streets. Tim Morsom reckons this street near where he lives in Leeds should be one of them.
You can see the tire marks in the road. This is where people are coming down here late at night doing donuts in the road, or sometimes it's used as a racing strip or a drag strip.
As well as drag racing, Tim says it's the modified exhausts that really raise the decibel levels.
They hugely increase the volume of the cars. It's, a really powerful growl, really, really loud, enough sometimes to make your windows shake. This noise can happen 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It really affects people's lives.
Frequently disrupted sleep can have a serious impact on our health.
Your brain has a awakened reaction to loud noises, which means when this happens, it increases the adrenaline and the cortisol hormones in your body, and it can cause a spike to your blood pressure and your heart rate.
So you're not actually resting or sleeping as well?
No, you're not. And that can affect your mental and your physical health. You're more likely to have anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, and even heart disease.
For Tim in Leeds, a camera could make all the difference.
It's really important for us to get this sorted. We're tired of having our sleep disrupted. This is a quiet, nice area. It should stay that way, and so we need to do something about it.
It's going to be interesting to see if that kind of technology makes a difference, I think.